This is one of the best titles for a book ever. How to Be the Old Lion, a compendium of truths I wish I'd learned when I was young. I bet that really resonates with a lot of people listening to this show. The author of the book, Terry P. Tanner, is in our virtual green room. He joins us on Author's Corner here on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. Terry, thanks for coming on. And as I said, the title of this book is so great because I think you nailed it since we had that off-air conversation. What led you to writing this book?
So over the last, we'll call it 35 or 40 years of my life, as I've discovered one of these truths, or it actually sunk in because many of them have been told to me by someone, I started writing them down. And recently I decided that perhaps that would help somebody if they could see my struggles, hear about them, and I could tell them the truths that became the guardrails for me in terms of keeping me on the path of where I want to go. That's why I wrote the book, to help others. The proverb in the book, from the young lion to the adult lion to the old lion, it was really semi-autobiographical. It was about me. But I think I finally reached the point where I can look back across my life and these specific truths and how they've helped me to live a life of intentionality and purpose.
One of the things you talk about is you say, knowing without application is worthless. You know, the difference between knowing something and applying it. Wow. I think a lot of people fall into this category. Oh, I'm going to learn this. They have books, mountains high of business books or whatever books it is. And then none of that actually appears in their life. Why is that?
Speaking for myself, I love to learn, and I've always wanted to know more than I know. But as I point out in the book, somebody saw me reading a book on mathematics long after I had left college, and they're like, "Why are you reading that book? You're never going to use it." And as I started thinking about that, to myself, really, why am I reading it? Because I love to learn, because I have, my wife says I have accumulated the greatest amount of worthless knowledge in any one human being. And what she means by that is I've learned a lot, but I don't have any way of applying it to my life. And so if I want to live that life of intentionality and purpose, I need knowledge that I can apply that will make my life better or someone else's life better. And if it's not going to do one of those two things, it's really not worth much unless you play Trivial Pursuit or want to go on Jeopardy.
Right. Well said. How about another thing that you talk about that kind of dovetails into it? You say, cutting through the distractions and focusing on what truly counts, being intentional. It's so tough, right, these days with all of the technology we have that is wonderful, but also, I can't tell you, and I know you know this too, everywhere you go, including church, restaurant, meeting, everybody has their head down, they're on phones, they're on iPads, they're just really not communicating.
Absolutely correct. I have a hate relationship with computers and cell phones. I can't live without them. Most of my business life is built around them, but it is a distraction from the things that are really important. There's a saying I put in the book that actually came from my grandmother, and it says, if you're spending much time at all with people that won't be crying at your funeral, you're wasting your time. And I think people have become so sensitive to what other people are thinking or doing, and the pace of knowledge has gotten so great that they're afraid to put that phone down. They're afraid they're going to miss something. And there's no peace to be had if your life is lived around a cell phone.
Boy, again, that's the hashtag. There's no peace to be had. Another thing that you talk about is the 3 purposes of life. We're not going to tell everyone everything in the book, but I think this is really something that what I call is sticky. Tell us the 3 purposes of life that you talk about in the book.
Sure. I believe I'm a person of faith. I believe that God created us for 3 specific purposes, and that's to love him, to follow his son Jesus and his teachings, and to serve others. And if we can do those 3 things well, we will live a life that has impact beyond just our life. It will spread out to others. It'll have a ripple effect, and you can constantly improve other people's lives just by doing those three things. And that is, for me, that is the purpose that I talk about in the book. And my intentionality is toward trying to do those three things. And if I do that, that's where my greatest peace comes from.
I like that. Your greatest piece. And then even, there's some lightheartedness in this book for sure. There's definitely a roadmap. That's what you're talking about when we talk about a compendium of truths. I wish I had learned. What would have been the difference if you had learned some of these truths earlier when you were young?
I could have spent a lot less time in a timeout, if you will. Um, if I had been willing to read it, Kate, and learn from it, and I had this discussion with my mom. She said, if I'd given you that when you were 20, how much of it do you think you'd have heard? I said, that's an excellent question, Mom. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of it I would learn. But there are definitely some things in terms of relationships that I pursued that weren't worth the time, the amount of time I put into chasing a career, which as I look back now was pretty much a waste of time. Um, yeah, it's that one's hard to put into a really succinct messaging, which I prefer.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about chasing the career because you get these mixed messages about chase your passions and you'll never work a day in your life. But then you do have to make a living. And it's like you said, you get the degree, you went to Auburn, you come out, and what is everybody talking about? Man, did you get a job yet? Where are you going? What's happening? It just becomes that. And that has not changed for decades and decades, right?
I agree. I agree 100%. If I could have avoided that particular um, issue, challenge, mistake in my life, where I took that road of I need the next promotion, I need the next raise, I need a bigger house, I need to live in a gated community, we've got to have nicer cars. Gosh, I could be retired on a Caribbean island somewhere right now instead of still working.
Did you are in the industry of an important industry. You're in the food distribution industry. So when we go back to Auburn days, would you have ever thought your path would have led you to what you're doing now?
No, ma'am, absolutely not. Nor would anyone else that knew me when I was younger. So my degree is in building science. My dad was a general contractor. I grew up in the construction industry. It's what I did until I had gone into business with my dad, and the two of us just couldn't work together as adults. I had that need to know mentality, and he felt like I was questioning his authority, which I wasn't. So I went and answered just an ad in the paper just to get a job somewhere for a year or so, always intending to go back and start my own construction company. And God just had a different plan. So I'm 33 years into the food career now. I've never moved back to construction, but it has put me in a place where I have met people and been able to speak with people that I never would have been able to in the construction industry. I've talked to CEOs and have top to top leadership meetings with people that matter. And it has allowed me a platform, if you will, to influence some people that might not otherwise hear from me or the messaging that I try to spread.
Yeah. And that messaging is in this book, How to Be the Old Lion, a compendium of truths I wish I had learned when I was young. And get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you pick up books, in any of the usual places. What do you hope people take away from reading this book in our conversation?
I would love for them, obviously, to buy the book, but beyond that, if they will read the book and apply those truths are specific to my life. If they can learn from mine and write down the ones that come to them and use them as guardrails, they will avoid a lot of the pitfalls that modern society leads us to. And they can be the old lion. They can have the peace and they can have no fear.
I like that. No fear and peace. Who doesn't want that? Perfect place to end this. Terry Tanner, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
Wow, there's some real wisdom in that. I think we have a lion hanging around the studio, in fact, in honor of Terry. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that proverb, and he talks about it right in the beginning of his book. He lists it. He says the young lions want to be powerful, but they fear they never will be. The adult lions have status and strength, but they fear they will lose them. The old lion understands the insignificance of them all, and he fears nothing. Be the old lion. So dead on. Be the old lion. And he touches on so many things of what would you have done differently? I love the question that his mother asked. If you had this book when you were 20, what are some of the things that would have been, different? And he did what I did. I mean, he journaled, he wrote things down. So when he wanted to go after this book, when he decided this, you could see it when you read the book, and he says that the lessons aren't unique to his life. Some of them are familiar to all of us, right? That he's offering, though, an inside glimpse into his experience, his pain, and some of the hard knocks that he went through, because he looked back on those journals and he really was able to see when and where the truths really took root. And he could see what overlapped, as he was talking to us about. He could see the interconnection, and he could see what happened with the scars too, as well. So smart, you talk about, and he says this too right in the beginning, be sure to write down your own lessons so that those who come after you can benefit from the insight and wisdom you accumulated from your hard life lessons. Once again, get the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Visit us at www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com or call us at +1 877 556